How do you follow up with your leads as a seven-figure wholesaling business? Well, I've coached dozens of seven-figure wholesalers. I'm going to take some of the best practices that I've found from each of them and break them all out in this video so you know how not only to set up your CRM, but also the cadences that you need to use to follow up with your leads. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to break out the difference between our leads and then our opportunities. What's the difference between a lead and an opportunity? A lead is just going to be anybody that raised their hand. That's a little hand. There you go. And then an opportunity is going to be someone that meets the following criteria. They have equity, motivation, they are the owner of the property, their time frame is going to be 90 days or less, and then they have actionability. Okay, now this will help us determine how often we need to follow up with our leads. So let's go over the leads first. So when I break out my leads, I break them into three different categories. The first one I have is my new leads. Now, these are going to be leads that are uncontacted for the first 14 days. That's my first step. Next thing I do is I want to look at my working leads. So my working leads are going to be people that I've spoken to. They're not quite an opportunity yet. So these are typically people that are, call it 3 to 6 months out from selling. All right. And so they're not quite ready for an appointment, but it's not like they're just a dead lead. I'm just not going to call them. And then lastly, I have my, what I call my follow-up leads. We've had people call these zombie leads, anything that entails that they are cold. You can also just call them cold leads. These are leads that are 6 months or greater from selling the property, right? So they could be 6 months, they could be 2 years, they could be 10 years. They are a verified seller and they do want to sell the property. So this is how we know they're a qualified lead. Basically, when they get into one of these buckets, these are qualified leads. So that means that they're a verified seller. They do want to sell the property. They are the owners, at least. Maybe they just don't want to sell it right now. You know, maybe they have some things that they need to work out. And so that's where we break them into the working leads and the follow-up leads process. So for my new leads, what I want to make sure is that I am dialing compliantly to get the best pickup rates. And when you are just starting, you might get away with triple dialing. Your numbers are going to be healthy for a little bit, especially if you don't have a ton of leads. But as you start to scale, if you are triple and double dialing, you're going to burn through all of your numbers and your pickup rates are going to shoot through the roof. So here's a compliant dialing strategy that will help you get the highest pickup rate possible. Day one, I want to dial 3 times per day, and I want it to be 3 hours apart. Okay, so 3 times today, 3 hours apart. I do not want to triple dial people. Now, I used to do this thing where I would like triple dial people 3 times a day, and eventually my pickup rates just shot down completely. They went down the toilet. And when I finally found out what this was, I was just burning through my numbers. And so compliantly, you can call 3 times a day. You just can't triple dial back to back to back. All right. And a lot of times people get pissed off on that anyway. So typically, like I would do 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. here. Okay. That would be my day one. Day two, I'm going to call them 2 times a day. And personal preference here, I actually like to do 8 and 6. I think they're either an early bird or they're an evening person, but you will catch some people on lunch. Now, we also have drip campaigns that we go over. I've got a ton of drip campaigns for my advanced inner circle students. And so if you want to look at some of the drip campaigns, I'm actually going to drop a link inside of this call where you guys can apply. You have to be doing about a deal a month to be able to get in. And all we do is we help business owners get to multiple 7 figures per year. So in the inner circle, we do 6 calls per week or a minimum of 3, depending on which program that fits you best. We have a ton of ask me anything calls, role plays, call reviews, everything that you would need to implement not only the sales process, but also some of the stuff that I am talking to today. So I will drop a link. Without further ado, I'm going to jump back into the training. So day 3 through 14, I'm going to call them 1 time per day. Now, this is all on top of our drip campaigns. So by the end of this, they should have 16 total dials. Now, there's a lot of data that says after 16 total dials, they're just probably not going to pick up. Think about if somebody called you 16 times. Would you pick up on the 17th? Probably not. Right? Doesn't mean we're going to give up on them. We're still going to call them, just not nearly as often. Then we have our working leads. Okay. So my working leads, I want to call those 1 time per month. They're going to be 3 to 6 months out from selling. So I want to make sure that I'm calling those at least 1 time per month to make sure I'm staying on top of them, right? What I see a lot of people do is someone says like, oh, I'm 4 months out from selling. And then they call them like every week and they're like, no, I'm still 4 months out from selling, right? If you call them once a month, that's completely appropriate. A lot of times their time frame just changes. So it's going to be one time a month for them. For my follow-up leads, I want to call them one time per quarter. So once every 3 months. Okay. And so with these, I obviously have drip campaigns on each of them. I am going to drip text email one time per month on the working leads. I'm going to text email one time a quarter on the follow-up leads. It's just going to be at different times than I would be calling them. I also want to make sure that all of these have a clear next step. And that's for both, for follow-up leads and working leads. I want to make sure that I have a clear next step, and what that looks like, a task, or if you're in Salesforce, it literally would say like a next step. I want to make sure that I have a action item for me to call them and what I am going to talk about. And so a lot of people ask me like, how do I start a follow-up call? I'll like go, well, how did your last call end, right? However your last call ended, what you told them you were going to check in on them with, that's how I start the call. So these are going to be my leads. These are anybody that doesn't meet a MOTA. Now what I want to do is I want to go through my opportunities. And if you are using a CRM like Resimply that doesn't have lead opportunities, that's fine. Just make these buckets where if you're in Go High Level or Salesforce, then they typically have opportunities. Podio, they don't have opportunities, right? They just have different buckets. So you just create these buckets. So the first thing that I have is I have my appointments set, right? So this is going to be, as soon as they meet a MOTA, they're going to be an appointment. They're going to go into my appointment set. From there, my next bucket is going to be my no-show appointments. I'm going to have my post-appointment follow-up. This is after the offer. FU stands for follow-up. I'm going to have my negotiations, and then I'll obviously have my contracts, dead leads, all of that stuff as well. But for my opportunities, these are the main ones. So for my appointment set, what do I need to have happen? I just need to have a clear app, date, and time. Okay, that's what I need to have for my appointment set. I need to have a clear appointment set with a date or time. Now, what happens between now and the appointment? I break those out into two categories. This would be virtual and in-person. Some people run in-person models. Some people do virtual. If I am doing a virtual appointment, I am going to send them a text 24 hours prior. And I'm also going to send them a text 2 hours prior. So those are going to be my reminder texts. And literally what those look like is they just say, hey, Bob, it's John over at Sell Easy SoCal. We have an appointment on the calendar for 1 o'clock. Please reply confirm to confirm. Just something like that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. For in-person, I typically don't want to send it out 2 hours prior, because if it takes them like 30 minutes to read and the appointment's 2 hours, I just took off in my car. So I want to send those a little bit earlier. So I'll do a 24-hour prior and I'll do a morning of. And that usually goes out at 8 a.m. Okay. So 24 hours prior, and I do a morning of. That is my automated reminder text. Now, I also do have my lead manager call on an in-person appointment and double confirm that they are going to be there. All of the decision makers are going to be there. All of that's happening. But I want to have some automations. I want to have those to help me out as well. So let's say that they don't show up. They become a no-show appointment, whether it was a phone call or an in-person. You go knock on the door, they don't answer. Phone call, they don't pick up the phone. What do we do? How do we follow up with them? So my cadence for my no-show appointments is actually the same as a new lead. So it's going to be 3 times day 1, going to be 2 times day 2, and it's going to be 1 time days 3 through 14. Okay, we also have a no-show drip campaign that goes out as well. That says, hey, we missed you on your appointment. I have a couple of minutes today to get back to you. Let me know if any of these times work. It's an entire, 7-day drip campaign for our no-show appointments, but we are going to be calling them just like a new lead. Why? Those are hot opportunities, right? We should be treating them like new leads. They are good appointments. All right, so that's my appointment set and no-show appointments. Then I have my post-appointment follow-up. So what is a post-appointment follow-up? It is an appointment that we gave an offer on, but the difference between the seller's least acceptable offer and our max allowable offer is greater than our average deal size. So let's say our average deal size is 30K. My MAO, my max allowable offer, is going to be 500. And then I find out that the seller's absolute bottom dollar, call this seller bottom dollar, is going to be 575. Well, I'm not going to move that into my negotiations. It doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. I'm just not going to treat it like a negotiations. Those are my post-appointment follow-up. If I only have an hour in my day to get to one of these buckets, I want to go to my negotiations first. I'm not going to focus on these post-appointment follow-up if I only have an hour. However, let's say I get through all my negotiations. What's the next thing that I would go through? All my post-offer follow-ups that have overdue tasks. And then I would go through my no-show appointments, right? Obviously, my appointments, those have set time, so I don't need to go through those. But those are the categories. That's how I go through this. So I basically go right to left in order of importance when I am doing my follow-ups. And so that's a post-appointment follow-up. I want to make sure that the next step, so I want to have my next step less than 30 days out. These are people that meet a MOTA, or again, they have equity, they have a real motivation, they own the property, they're going to be selling in the next 90 days, and nothing's going to prevent them from selling in the next 90 days. So I don't want to just let those go for 6 months. Like, they are going to be taking action. Maybe they're just early in the sales process and they don't really understand what their property is worth. Maybe there needed to be some better objection handling. So I'm still going to make sure that I'm calling those at least once per month. And lastly, I have my negotiations. So my negotiations are pretty simple. My MAO is within my average deal size. And so what I mean by that, if my average deal size is 30K, my MAO was 500. The seller says they want 530. That's a pretty reasonable gap for me to fill. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those in my negotiations bucket. These don't have any automations because I want really clear next steps. Okay, so what I want filled out here is what was the seller's bottom dollar, SBD, my seller's bottom dollar. I want to know what that was. What was the objection that they gave me? Was it a price objection? Was it a partner objection? What do I need to go back to be able to overcome that, right? Might go watch some sales training, come back and be able to overcome that objection on the next call. I want to know what the seller's next steps are. So a lot of times they'll say, yeah, it's too low. I'm going to go talk to other companies. I'm going to go list with a realtor. I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. Now, I teach how to overcome those objections, but if you can't get those, you want to know what their next steps are. So that way, when you do reconnect with them, you know what to ask them about. And so I want to know these 3 things when I'm looking at my negotiations. And I want to have a next step that's no more than 7 days out. Now, I look at these every single day. When I'm going through, I'm looking at my negotiations. Those are my hottest deals. When I'm managing my team, I'm looking at their negotiations as well. Every single week, we pull up all of their negotiations. Hey, where are they? What objections are they giving you? So we can role play those and they can go and be able to overcome those objections. So that's my cadence on how I follow up with my leads inside of my CRM. I'm going to do a 2-part series here. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. I put a new video out about once a week. So next video, I'm going to be going over how to follow up with your lead. What does that conversation look like? How do you disarm them and how do you get them back into result-based thinking after you already gave them an offer? So make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next video.